All right, we just finished another night of D&D, playing Advent Adventure in the city of Jezreel. It went wild. It's just there's something you can only get out of D&D because it's like active storytelling in a way that no other game is. So, the very short of it starts out in the city, which is the city of Jezreel is a place that's dedicated to the worship of Baal, and the prophetess Jezebel from the Old Testament. Except this city is like ravenous for it. It is one giant, never-ending bonfire extravaganza. It's just like the dance never ends. There's sights and sound and smells and as much as you can afford. It's all about experience and doing everything you want to do. Don't deny yourself anything. It's indulgent. It's reckless. It's self-sacrificing. Sometimes literally. There's bloodletting in the temple courtyard and such. So then, here the characters come in. They do a bit of haggling first in the marketplace. Trade a Pharisee's robe for a craftsman's knife, which will be useful for making things or cutting up things. And then a grappling hook, which comes in handy all kinds of places. And when it gets to the city, they say the guards go off to get someone to bring back for the offering, which you kind of realize is code word for sacrifice. They go to a woman who goes by the name of Rahab, like in the Old Testament, but it's someone else with the same name. It's I use that a lot. Like those, it's not the person from hundreds of years ago, but it's someone else who's the same role now. And so the characters the players show up and they start kind of small talking with the guards to kind of distract them, while the other character sets up a trip line, and then one of the guards falls over, hits the ground, they roll a 20, he's like knocked unconscious. Second guy calls out for help. Player jumps on his back and muffles his mouth, and second player makes a run for it with Rahab. And so I've got the courtyard all set up with the people in it, and they just said, okay, there's a fire dancer over this way, there's a cultist with the knife that way, and she's like, I'm gonna go by the one with the dancer. That sounds easy. It's a parkour dancer. She gets hit right in the head, knocked to the ground, but she ends up like grappling hooking around its legs, the guy's legs, so it just falls to the ground, and they make a run for it. At the edge of the city, they come across something that's there's a bit of mythology from the Old Testament. Jezebel, the queen, she gets killed by being thrown out a window, and then she's apparently trampled by horses and then eaten by the dogs. It's like, that's grim, but also very specific. I was like, what if they ate her and they got transformed? They eat this prophetess of child sacrificing evil, and they become these things that they've grown to be as big as horses. Their bodies are covered in sores, and sometimes you see this glow under their skin, like coals and embers. They shouldn't be alive at this point, but by this dark magic they are. So, enter the city. What happens? So, it charges at them, but one of them throws oil on the ground. They had little flasks of oil, and I was like, you can use it for whatever. Cooking, probably setting things on fire. I kind of knew that might happen at some point. So the guard, the town charges at them, and I go from like this terrifying monster to like this Scooby-Doo scene with like scrambling in the air as it slips and falls and slams right into them. So they get up, one guy throws a net on it, and the other girl puts a bag over its head. So all the dignity is just lost. This thing I was going to have them be like running from in fear is like kind of bound and gagged for a minute. So it gets out while it's bound like that. One of them tries to jump on its back to ride it, and I was like, this was not the plan, but I guess I'm not going to stop you. But she rolls a 5 and tries to jump over it and falls on the other side. Takes fall damage. Second guy's like, all right, if you're not going to ride it, I'm going to just kill it. So he slashes the thing's throat. And it's those coals I mentioned earlier. I was like, I can use this. So I mentioned there's flame coming out of the sword, the cuts in his body now. Then I remember the oil. So the player points that out and was like, oh, it's putting fire onto oil. I know what that does. It's a fireball. The whole thing goes up in flames, and one character just goes, fireball going off behind him, and he walks off. And they make a run for it. They have had a rough day. And so I tell them, there's a Greek spa in the mountains. You want to go visit that? And that's where they're headed next. That's the latest. See you next time.